welcome to today's deep dive. I mean, imagine being handed a prescription, right? Like a literal prescription that guarantees better decision-making, boundless energy, and just this unshakable sense of calm under pressure.
Which, sounds like the absolute holy grail for literally any modern professional.
Right. But then imagine the pharmacist hands you the bottle and is like, by the way, to actually get these results, you have to sit perfectly still, breathing rhythmically for 7 hours a day.
Yeah, I mean, if you're an entrepreneur or a parent or really just anyone with a smartphone and a pulse, you'd probably just laugh, throw it in the trash, and, go buy another cup of coffee.
Exactly. But today, we are looking at a master of ancient yogic sciences, someone who looked at that exact same 7-hour requirement and just said, yeah, I don't have time for that either.
It's such a fascinating collision. You have this ascetic monastic dedication required to master these esoteric energy sciences on one side, and then on the other, you have the relentless notification-heavy reality of our modern world.
And navigating that collision is our entire mission for today. So we're doing a deep dive into the philosophy and the really extensive source material from Osman. He's widely known as the blind Muslim yogi.
And we really need to establish who he is right up front, because this isn't your standard, weekend retreat wellness coach. Osman is a bioenergy healer on a master level.
Right.
He actually uses telepathic healing capabilities based on the principles of quantum entanglement. And his specialty is critical care, recovery, and even terminal illnesses.
Which is incredibly intense. I mean, he has been practicing healing along with advanced yoga and meditation for 50 years. He attained his first samadhi, which is like this profound state of consciousness, by the age of 19.
Yeah, 19. And he studied extensively across the Far East, the Middle East, the West. But the hook here, the reason we're really digging into his scientific approach today, is that he hasn't spent those 50 years hiding in a cave.
No, not at all.
He has been a working entrepreneur for 29 years.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because how does someone manage to bridge a 5,000-year-old esoteric tradition with, like, the demands of a modern fiscal quarter? We're going to extract his highly adaptable approach so that you listening right now can figure out how to actually apply this to your own chaotic life.
But before we get into the mechanics of his routine, we really have to set the guardrails. Osman is very strict right at the beginning of his material about what his practice is and, more importantly, what it isn't.
Yeah, he explicitly states that all of his therapies are entirely natural and complementary. They are not, and he stresses this, not a replacement for formal medical treatment.
Right. It's a vital boundary, especially in today's wellness industry, which, let's be honest, is saturated with some pretty exaggerated claims. He says his services are there to enhance whatever is lacking in the medical fields, not replace them. If you have a condition and you need medical consultation.
Exactly. And because of his incredibly high success rate over 50 years and his rigorous practice, which, by the way, extended up to 18 hours a day at certain stages of his life, his one-on-one treatments are at a premium level and a premium price.
Yeah, currently he still practices a minimum of 8 to 10 hours a day, just, as he says, sharpening the sword, which is why he has that uncommon ability to heal.
But the great thing is he offers so much for free. He has a free 5-minute yoga and meditation program available for download right now on his website, which is yogawellness786.com. That's yogawellness786.com.
And he also has a YouTube channel with extensive, completely free advice and techniques, plus a Patreon for daily live video lessons if you want to go deeper. And you can find his podcasts on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, too.
Right, so let's get into the actual philosophy here. Because Osman's mission is to encourage a scientific, result-based, simplified methodology. And he draws from some incredibly deep lineages.
Oh, absolutely. When you look at his background, it mirrors the depth of figures like Swami Sivananda from the Divine Life Society or Yogananda.
Oh, yeah, like an autobiography of a yogi.
Exactly. Autobiography of a Yogi introduced so many of these esoteric concepts to the West. And you have Swami Vivekananda and Ramakrishna, who really laid the groundwork for understanding this deep spiritual science. But Osman takes that massive database of ancient knowledge and essentially translates it for the modern mind.
Which brings up his reverence for Dr. Deepak Chopra, right?
Yes. What's fascinating here is how Osman relies on that scientific bridge. He values Chopra because Chopra took these abstract, ancient concepts and translated them into published scientific frameworks.
I mean, if you think about it, we're seeing this massive cultural shift towards scientific validation of ancient practices across so many platforms today. Like, look at the Huberman Lab podcast.
Oh, totally.
When Professor Andrew Huberman talks with someone like Dr. Jack Feldman about the neurobiology of breathing, or he has Dr. Andy Galpin on to discuss physiological recovery, they're basically validating the exact breathwork mechanics that yogis have used for millennia.
Right. And Huberman even did a solo episode entirely on the mechanics of respiration, explaining how different breathing cadences directly manipulate the vagus nerve. Osman is doing the exact same thing. He's removing the esoteric friction.
Yeah, he explicitly says he doesn't focus on the minute classical details of bandhas, those energy locks or mudras, the hand gestures.
Of cognitive load.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
like you don't need to be a master mechanic who understands every single piston and valve just to drive your car to work. Osman is just giving us the keys to the car, not the engineering manual.
And that's critical because if you look at, say, the Diary of a CEO podcast with Stephen Bartlett,
Oh, great example.
Bartlett constantly interviews high-level founders and thinkers, like when he had Mo Goddard on to talk about the algorithms of happiness, or even when he interviewed Deepak Chopra himself. The recurring theme is always how overwhelmed the modern executive brain is.
Right. Bartlett's guests are always talking about decision fatigue.
Exactly. So if Osman tells a stressed CEO they need to memorize 20 Sanskrit terms just to breathe correctly, the brain perceives it as a new stressor. So Osman just dumps the esoteric trivia and focuses purely on intellectual development and practical consciousness.
Okay, so if we aren't focusing on achieving this vague long-term enlightenment, what are we focusing on? What is the actual ROI here?
This is where Osman completely subverts the traditional model. He focuses on tangible benefits within a highly compressed window, specifically 6 weeks to 6 months.
6 months, which is basically a corporate fiscal quarter.
Right. He is hacking the modern professional's motivational structure. He lists very specific outcomes: improving creativity, a deep state of calm, better decision-making, physical flexibility, and just a massive feeling of energeticness.
Think about your own workday. If you could guarantee better decision-making and more energy within 6 weeks, wouldn't you invest the time? I mean, this is exactly what Mel Robbins talks about on the Mel Robbins podcast.
Oh yeah, her approach is so pragmatic.
Like when Mel Robbins had Dr. Russell Kennedy on to talk about healing anxiety, or Dr. Amy Shaw discussing energy levels and circadian rhythms. The focus is always on immediate, actionable biological interventions. Mel Robbins even had Robin Sharma on to discuss the 5 a.m. club mindset. It's all about practical tools.
And that's the psychological brilliance of Osman's approach. By abandoning the promise of someday enlightenment, he makes the practice incredibly accessible.
And here is the huge reality check. How much time does this actual investment take? Because the reality of the 24-hour clock really clashes with these ancient texts.
The math of the ideal practice is genuinely terrifying.
Let's break it down.
Okay, so for breathwork, energy control, the ideal is 3 hours a day.
Just breathing. 3 hours.
Then postures, the asanas, that's ideally over an hour, like an hour and 10 minutes.
Okay, so 4 hours and 10 minutes.
And then meditation. As an energy healer at his level, the texts require 3 hours of deep meditation a day.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because I'm doing the math out loud. That is over 7 hours a day. He's supposed to be doing 7 hours of practice, but he runs multiple businesses.
Right, and he openly admits he used to do up to 18 hours. But currently, he does 8 to 10 hours just to maintain his healing edge. But for his own personal baseline, he acknowledges that as an entrepreneur, 24 hours just isn't enough.
So what does his actual routine look like when the pressure's on?
He usually manages about 2 hours of breath work, maybe 80 to 90% of the time. But during emergencies, when business demands it, he scales that down to 45 or even 30 minutes.
Wow, from 3 hours down to 30 minutes.
Yeah, postures drop to 20 minutes. And meditation is done in what he calls pockets of time, rarely exceeding an hour total.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is really about removing the guilt of perfectionism. It reminds me so much of conversations on the Joe Rogan Experience.
That's it.
Well, Rogan is always talking to people with these extreme routines, like when he had Wim Hof on to discuss extreme breath work and cold exposure, or Naval Ravikant talking about meditation and wealth creation, even Rick Rubin talking about stillness and creativity. The underlying message is often about finding what works for your biology in the real world.
Exactly. Osman doesn't view dialing down his practice as a failure. He views it as a necessary survival mechanism for the 21st century. Even a 50-year master struggles to find an uninterrupted hour.
So if you only have 30 minutes, what actually survives the chopping block?
He has a few core non-negotiable techniques. The first is pranayama, specifically alternate nostril breathing.
Right.
He mentions doing this with retention, minimum 21 rounds, ideally at 4 different junctions of the day.
Which balances the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems.
Exactly. And as a warm-up before that, he uses kapalbhati, which is a forceful exhalation technique that essentially spikes your alertness.
It's like a biological shot of espresso.
Yeah. And then for the physical body, Surya Namaskar, the sun salutations, ideally 12 sets to warm up and stretch before any static postures.
But how does he fit even that into a busy day? You mentioned pockets of time.
Well, he wakes up at 3 a.m. to get 4 hours of control before 7 a.m.
You know, 3 a.m.
But he also does internal incantations during his lunch breaks or while he's traveling.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? It means you don't need this pristine, perfectly quiet meditation room. You can practice energy control while you're commuting or literally waiting in line at the grocery store.
It's so pragmatic. And if you look at a podcast like Beer Biceps or The Ranveer Show, Ranveer Alabadia explores this exact intersection.
Oh, right. The blending of ancient Indian mysticism with modern life.
Exactly. Ranveer has guests like Sadhguru talking about mysticism, or Dr. Siddhartha Warrior breaking down the neuroscience of meditation, or Jay Shetty discussing the monk mindset in a corporate world. They're all trying to figure out how to do these ancient practices while stuck in modern traffic. Osman has mastered that.
Which leads perfectly into his ultimate advice for his students, because Osman explicitly tells them not to treat him as the be-all and end-all of teachers.
Yeah, that blew my mind. The end of the guru era.
Right. He encourages people to extract what works, learn from multiple people, and basically build their own customized program.
This raises an important question, right? Are we too obsessed with finding the perfect protocol rather than just starting a functional one?
Oh, absolutely. We curate our wellness instead of practicing it. But Osman says the most important thing is to just get started.
It's a very peak performance mindset. It reminds me of Lewis Howes on the School of Greatness podcast.
Oh, for sure.
Lewis is always interviewing people like Tony Robbins about getting into peak states, or Joe Dispenza on neuroplasticity, or even Wim Hof again. The core message there is always about taking agency over your own architecture. Tony Robbins himself is a massive advocate for just taking massive, imperfect action. Osman is saying the same thing for yogic science.
And it also ties into the really deep spiritual awakening stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you listen to Buddha at the Gas Pump with Rick Archer.
Yes. That show is entirely about ordinary people having profound awakenings.
Exactly. Rick Archer interviews people like Dr. Bonnie Greenwell, who talks extensively about Kundalini energy or Adyashanti or Swami Sarvaprinanda. They discuss these massive energetic shifts, the kind that Gopi Krishna wrote about in his autobiographies. But they ground it in everyday modern reality.
Right, and Osman's telepathic healing and his understanding of quantum entanglement operate on that exact same profound energetic level, but he's applying it practically.
Even Rainn Wilson talks about this on his Soul Boom podcast.
Oh, right, the spiritual revolution.
Yeah, Rainn interviews people like Reza Aslan or Radhanath Swami, constantly asking how we can use these ancient spiritual tools to actually fix our modern society.
And that's exactly what Osman is doing on his website. If you go to yogawellness786.com, he isn't just posting old scriptures. He frames these practices within contemporary discussions. He analyzes trending topics from major media platforms in London or Dubai.
He's taking the pulse of the 21st century zeitgeist. Bridging the ancient with the trending is exactly what keeps these practices alive and relevant today.
Absolutely. He's treating it as a living technology.
So let's summarize the journey we just took. We learned that even a master of 50 years, someone with telepathic-level dedication and healing abilities, struggles with time.
Yeah, the math is just brutal for everyone.
We learned to focus on a 6-month ROI for things like calm and creativity. We learned to completely drop the guilt of imperfect routines. And most importantly, we learned to build a customized, scientifically backed practice that actually works for our lives.
And if you want to get started, you have to go to yogawellness786.com. He has that free 5-minute yoga and meditation program available for download.
Completely free. And remember, he offers extensive free advice on his YouTube channel, plus a Patreon for live daily video lessons and one-on-one consultations. You can also listen to him on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
But Osman noted one thing that really stuck with me. He joked that even if we had 48 hours in a day, it still wouldn't be enough to finish our modern tasks.
That's so true. The to-do list is infinite.
So if time isn't the real issue, because we'll always fill it, Perhaps our challenge isn't finding the time to meditate, but finding the courage to pause the endless cycle of entrepreneurial and daily busyness. What if your lack of time is actually just a lack of permission you're giving yourself to simply stop?
Wow. Yeah, only you have the authority to write that prescription to pause. So take that thought into your day. Find your pocket of dead space and just stop. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.